Welcome to another episode of Gaming and Performance. I'm your host, and I'm back with another video. In this video, I'm going to follow up on my last video regarding the title, The Fix Separate Network Cards Gives an Advantage in Online FPS, in which towards the end of that video, I indicated that I did not know the next time I'm going to provide you with another video talking about any form of tweaking, because that was the fix for me to gain an advantage in the first-person shooter games online. It was never really about tweaking the operating system and making changes in the registry and all that other stuff that really fixed it. It was hardware that fixed it. And that brought a revelation that I should have expounded upon in that video, but I will in this. The best way to get the level of performance that you're looking for in games, you're talking about the lowest frame times, the highest frames per second, the lowest latency of your peripherals, is that you're going to need to upgrade your hardware. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're not going to get around it. We have spent over 10 years using OS tweaks that only brought marginal increases in gaming performance at the cost of stability. And it never really brought us the kind of wow factor that we will get when we upgrade our hardware, especially when you wait several generations to upgrade, which is, in my opinion, the best course of action when you upgrade. You don't really need to upgrade every year. So what do I mean by that? I'm gonna give you an example, and there's hundreds of them. I don't want to spend that whole time in this video giving you all of them, but let's say timer resolution, for example. Timer resolution has been depreciated by Microsoft. And here I want to show you about timer resolution and how it's been depreciated. Here's an article directly from Microsoft dated June 20th, 2023, last year. It says here, the feature associated with this page, multimedia timers, as they call it, is a legacy feature. It has been superseded by Multimedia Class Scheduler Service. Multimedia Class Scheduler Service has been optimized for Windows 10 and 11. Microsoft strongly recommends that new code use Multimedia Class Scheduler Service instead of multimedia timers when possible. Microsoft suggests that existing code that uses the legacy APIs be rewritten to use the new APIs if possible. And I'll stop there. This is just one example. There are plenty. I know I provided another video involving another. A quick edit here. I want to add a few more just for clarification. Trying to disable Agent. I discussed it in another video. Any BCD edits that you try to use at all, don't use them. Invoking or trying to force full screen exclusivity for games that don't support it. Tweaking advanced tab of the network adapter card when your network adapter card hardware is already weak. You need to just buy a better network adapter card, which I discussed in my other video. Trying to use IRQ priority tweaks. Now, this is more advanced tweaks. Not a lot of people know about it, but the people who do, if in fact the GPU or USB IRQ changes because of any other tweaks you do, you will hose your OS. Using TCP Optimizer, again, that goes as far back Windows XP, I believe. Using apps that temporarily disable Windows processes, using apps that claim to lower ping for online games, especially if it's a monthly subscription. Any apps that make your registry defrag or reduce for speed. Any other registry CMD PowerShell tweaks to alter the operating system in exchange for increased frames per second, lower latency, and smoother gameplay. The gist is simple. If you don't notice a difference, then don't use it. Depending on what version of the OS you are using, will give various results to none at all. But the dynamic of the operating system has changed throughout the years, in which they're making strides to improve how the operating system interacts with the hardware. It is because of that, our tweaks, when I say our, I'm talking about the community at large, are no longer effective like they used to be in days past. Some of these tweaks go back to XP that people are still using that they should not be using. In general, it makes me want to go down the list. By doing so, I'm going down that rabbit hole. Majority of these tweaks, if you do not notice a difference, just use the default. That's the best answer I can give you. If you're really looking for a fix to improve latency, to improve frame times, and to improve frames per second, you're going to need to upgrade your hardware. Some of you who will watch this video are several generations behind in your hardware. Some of you are operating on CPUs and GPUs that are 2 to 3 generations old or more. You're going to have to accept that this is what the issue is. You are using older hardware, and it does not mean you cannot game with the older hardware. It does mean that you're limited to the amount of frames per second you get. It's going to be limited to your frame times, and it's going to be limited to your input latency. It's going to be a limitation to how well that performs, but you still will be able to play those games. Now, what do you need to do? Well, you try all these tweaks and you get a certain performance parameter that helps, and it does. Some of the tweaks do help. Now, I'm not saying all of the tweaks don't help. I'm just saying that the majority of them don't, with a few exceptions. Those few exceptions I have provided on my YouTube channel. I try to segregate and to separate all the noise, which is the other tweaks that no longer work, versus the ones that I've seen that actually do work in Windows 10. I have never talked about any tweaks about Windows 11. I specifically intended to do that because currently, no matter what people tell you, there really are not any software OS tweaks available in Windows 11 that's going to drastically improve latency, frame rate, and frame time. If you think you do have one, you're simply going down that rabbit hole, and there's no coming out until you accept that the only real fix is to upgrade your hardware. Now, what does that mean? Upgrade your hardware. You have to replace the motherboard, and you're going to have to buy a separate network adapter card, which is 10 gigabit or better, because most of these motherboards don't have that yet, even in 2024. Get a high-end GPU and get a high-end CPU and buy a high-end power supply. These are the things that are required. Shortchanging yourself in any of those is not going to get you the result that you're looking for. This is what it's going to take. And when I provided that last tweak that fixed my issue, and realizing that it took a piece of hardware, which is the network adapter card, in order to bring parity to what I was actually looking for, which was the whole crux why I created this channel. I then realized that it was not software that did it, it was hardware. And I'm trying to bring that revelation to you. You do not have to rely on my channel. However, I am going to take some responsibility and to tell you that these tweaks are not the end all be all in getting the best out of your gaming experience. You're going to need to upgrade, and that is the only way you're going to fix it. Saying that whether you have the resources to get this stuff or not is unfortunately not relevant. You're going to have to dedicate the time and effort to accumulate the resources that you need in order to purchase the upgrades. That is the way. It is the way. You know it if you are a PC gamer. And there's no excuse and no compromise. You must do it. Now, I've seen some YouTubers who go down this rabbit hole and they will create videos explaining these old tweaks, telling you whether it's relevant or not. And it's a complete waste of time. Most of these tweaks, if not all of them, are more than 2 to 3 years old. They're several years old to a decade old. And still discussing them in 2024 is simply irrelevant. I've known this one YouTuber who've actually tried to, for example, he used the timer resolution to say that somehow provided an improvement in his gaming experience. The problem is that he dedicated his YouTube channel to testing different tweaks, testing. And during the testing, I noticed, now I've watched this guy for almost a year now, off and on, now not all the time. I never really dedicated time to watch all his videos, but because his videos could be several hours old. But he dedicated his YouTube channel to testing certain tweaks, but never came to a conclusion, which was the problem why I stopped watching him. When you're testing tweaks, you should get one of 3 outcomes. A negative impact, B, a positive impact, or C, no impact at all. The majority of his tweaks involving any kind of change to the registry or going into PowerShell and all that other stuff, they gave no change to his gaming performance at all. And he never saw it. He never saw it. He never said, wait a minute, I'm not seeing any difference at all. And if he did see a difference, it was so minute that he magnified it to try to make it bigger than what it really was. When I saw that, I realized this guy is going down the rabbit hole of the old tweaks and not coming up for air to see the forest before the tree. And that's why I had to stop watching him, because nothing that he did ever gave him insight enough to formulate a revelation that this does not work. And that's what I want to prevent for you. I want you to never fall into that rabbit hole, thinking that you got to do this, and you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that. And then you have so many changes in your operating system. When you go to look at a picture, or when you want to try to create a video, for some reason, your PC ain't working no more. You are not able to load it. It crashes, it arrows out. You can't figure out what happened. And this is what typically happens when you make way too many changes in the registry, way too many changes in PowerShell, and changing the OS to where it's no longer stable. And I need to take some responsibility to inform you that these changes, even though some do make some differences, some of these tweaks make some differences, but they're so minute, it's not enough to say that it's worth doing over upgrading. None of these tweaks are worth doing over upgrading. None of them. None of them. None of them. They're not worth doing over upgrading. Upgrading takes precedent over any other tweak that you try to write into your OS. And that is where I'll leave it at that. It's a hard pill to swallow. Just drink plenty of water. But this is where we've come to parity. This is where we come to how to get better performance. That is why my last tweak involves a hardware solution. There is no software solution. You cannot change the network adapter card settings and get a better solution versus a better network card. I did explain that much in that video. You need a better network adapter card in order to get a better resolution. I do hope that you take my advice, and by the end of summer, you've accumulated enough wealth to afford yourself a major upgrade on top of the line components, top of the line CPU, top of the line GPU, top of the line motherboard, top of the line power supply, and a 10 gigabit or better network adapter card, so that you can finally game and have an enjoyable experience without having to worry about tweaking A, B, C, and XYZ. I do thank you for your time. Have a nice day.